Jambo. Karibu, everybody. I am your host, Dr. Ruth Akumbu. I bring you cultural relevant, multifaceted conversations, intersecting education, entertainment, and business with a commitment to DEIB and cultural capacity building. So my guest today is Brian Koppening, and he is the Chief Diversity Officer at California State University, Monterey. My official welcome is Jambo. Jambo just means hello in Swahili.
Hey, Jambo, right?
Yeah, so Jambo, Brian, Jambo.
Jambo, yeah. And I was at this university college at Hamilton College. Here's my second job in higher ed, a private liberal arts college in upstate New York. And this is years ago. I took a Swahili class. It was kind of sat in on it. Habarigani.
That's awesome. You took a Swahili class. That's a little trinket I didn't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. But it was a long time ago. So unfortunately, most of that left. But anyway.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah. Have you been to say Kenya, for example, where Swahili is the second official language?
In Tanzania, right?
Oh, I don't know about Tanzania, Swahili being their second language, but I know in Kenya, they have
right, exactly.
They have Swahili, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah, so someone asked me this the other day, said, have you ever been to Africa, the continent? I said, yeah, I was in Egypt. Mm-hmm. This was, I was a college student, man. And then we did a summer thing, and we ended up in Middle East and Egypt, yes. Cairo, Luxor, Aswan,
Wow. So you haven't gone south? You haven't gone south?
No, so in the continent. Now it's not sub-Sahara, but in the continent of Africa, it was Egypt. So my son's mother, we lived in St. Louis, and I worked at St. Louis Community College. Right. So did she. And the sister city of St. Louis was Saint Louis in Senegal, and she went to Saint Louis a couple times as part of this exchange thing we had with St. Louis Community College and some college in Saint Louis.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I highly encourage going to Kenya and those countries. I do.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to do that. I want to go to Tanzania and Kenya. I want to go to Zanzibar.
Yes.
And that's one of the things about at this point in time in my career, I'm closer to the end of my career than the beginning of my career. And one of the things I do want to do is do some more traveling. Right. I had the fortune, my dad was in the Army, and we traveled a lot, spent 3 years in Germany.
Nice.
Spent a year and change in Iran under the Shah. My dad came back here, actually. And because, I don't know if I told you I was born here, right? And my dad was stationed in Fort Ord.
No, I did not know that.
Oh, I thought I told you that. No. Anyway, so I was born.
About everything but that.
yeah, right. So I was born here, my brother and I. And then we came back when I was in the 9th grade, because my dad went to the language school and learned Farsi.
Okay.
And Farsi was the longest program at the language school. So Pop got fluent in Farsi. You learn how to speak, read, and write Farsi. And Farsi is different alphabet. Right. They read from right to left rather than from left to right. And so he learned all that, and it's funny. So then we went to Iran for ended up being a year. Supposed to be longer than that, but we had a family tragedy, so we had to come back. So
sorry about that.
Yeah. So anyway, so
that's fascinating. Sounds like you've been in this diversity field from a very young age, like not young age, but from your.
Well, that's a good way to put it, and I've never really thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. I think one of the things about diversity is this whole idea about being comfortable. Basically interacting and engaging with anyone. Right. Because you're not intimidated. Your lack of understanding and awareness doesn't impede you and prevent you from getting to know somebody from a different culture. In fact, you embrace that opportunity to learn about some different cultures. Right. And that is part about being a military brat, as we call them, an Army brat, because you live all over the place. I lived all over America, and I lived in overseas a couple of times, and so so that I grew up immersed in that. And my dad, this country boy from North Carolina, who left North Carolina in the late 40s, as a way of getting away from segregation and all that. And he was in Japan, and he was only his 19th birthday. He was in Japan.
Wow.
And then he was in Korea, and he'd been in Germany before he met my mother and married my mother. He was in Germany, and so he went back to Germany. So Pops, Vietnam. But Pops was in a lot of different places. Yeah.
Well, for work, but he did all those
right.
Korea, Vietnam, Japan. Those are all really big names.
Yeah. So Pops was an incredible man, but he instilled that sense and exposed us to the world as a result of his service to in the army. So yeah.
Did the name Kopning? Can you say it?
Kopning, yeah.
Kopning, okay. Did he give you that name, and does it mean anything?
Well, as most names for African Americans or people of African heritage in America, it was a name that really was the name of the master slave name. It really is a name that is, I think, part Dutch.
Because you think of Copenhagen and you start hearing that.
Yeah. But they actually came from Pennsylvania, the white side of the family, of course, and they migrated to North Carolina. And my dad was born in Morganton, North Carolina, which is at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it's like it's considered Western North Carolina. Okay. My grandfather, actually, his mother was half Cherokee and half Black, and she actually conceived my grandfather with a white man. So whose father was, or was it grandfather? No, his father. His father was a Civil War cat, a Confederate officer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, so my grandfather really is, half 1/4 Cherokee and half white and all that, and so there's a lot of that. But that's kind of the American story.
Right. Yeah, but it's fascinating when you know your own. Right. Yeah. It's the American story, but it is your story. Does this story define you in any way, do you think? Because I haven't had the privilege of hearing a lot of people know that detail. Say my grandfather on this side, my grandmother on this side. But not a lot of people know those details, which it's almost feels to me like you're doing this African thing where you just list down the list of your ancestors and your people, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think the nature of the experience, of Black folk in this country, compels you in some ways to want to know more about your experience. I mean, we can all say that our ancestors had some attachment or some connection with slavery, right? I think the main thing to understand that, especially the native side, the Cherokee, the eastern branch of the Cherokee. Now, I lived in Oklahoma before I came here. And Oklahoma was, the Indian Territory. The Trail of Tears, where the Creek, the Choctaw, the Cherokee were forced west, the Seminole were forced west, and the Trail of Tears marched in the 1830s, 1830s, where they were forced march, and they lost their land, whether it was Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi. They were forced out of that land into the Indian Territory. Right. But there were Cherokee who stayed behind, who kind of hid up in the mountains. It ended up being the eastern branch of the Cherokee. Now there's a casino. There's always a casino. Those are my native brothers and sisters, but more power to them. Near Asheville, associated with Harris, but that's all Cherokee territory.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like makes sense that there was some of that Cherokee blood or that native blood in my family. Considering the nature of how close where my father's family's from.
Yes. Yes.
But understand that, Ruth, is important, because for me, it's like, I'm a proud Black man, but there's also more to me than just that.
Right.
So none of us can look at others and say, oh, I know who they are. I know what they come from. I know their journey. No, you don't. And that's why this whole idea about, if you really are committed to this idea of equity and inclusion, it means that you got to spend some time getting to know somebody and understanding their journey, understanding their culture, understanding their history. And not just assume it's face value. I can assess who you are based upon me looking at you, not even talking to you, right?
Yes.
And so and one of the things about being in Oklahoma, and I know some people who are on the BIA roles, right? Bureau of Indian Affairs roles. Right. So they actually are certified as a particular tribe.
Right.
So they're able to benefit from, the largesse that comes from the casinos or accessing the Indian health resources at a hospital or whatever. And so, I think it's 16% or something like that, or maybe more.
Okay.
But to be able to actually show that, and then you card carrying.
Right.
And, and the freedmen, the whole thing about the freedmen in Oklahoma. So the freedmen some tribes had Black slaves.
Right.
Seminole, the Cherokee, and, Choctaw, some of them had Black slaves.
Right.
And the ancestors of those slaves, because part of this treaty and all that after the Civil War was, they would be recognized as members of the tribe.
Okay.
Now, prior to the casino craze, that really didn't carry a lot to it, right? But now, tribal members are really well taken care of, and rightly so. They should, all the sacrifices and all the lies and tragedies and genocide that their ancestors had to endure, they should be getting something.
Right.
But the whole thing about the freedmen is that the freedmen, ancestors of the freedmen should get that too.
Right.
I mean, descendants of the freedmen should get that too.
Get that, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, so really, so this whole thing about, lineage, your journey, where you came from, all resonates because, you can't say at face value.
Right.
Body.
I agree. I totally agree, because it's like one of the things that people have argued is that when you look at people, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the way some people are doing it makes everybody stereotyping of people, because you look at people, you just stereotype them. But like from what you're saying, you cannot stereotype anybody because people are different. Even down to their values and their culture and everything, people are different. So just looking at somebody as a Black person or as a Native American or as a Hispanic person or
even a white person.
Even a white person, you can't just stereotype people. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because it really shows the importance of spending time to know people. That way you don't keep saying using the same stereotypes about cultures and people and different groups just because that's what everybody says. Just because I'm African, I speak with an accent, it doesn't mean anything. I could be maybe I wasn't even there. Maybe I moved there when I was 5 and all my heritage is here. So you don't know anything until you get to know people. So I really value that.
Yeah, but even being from the continent of Africa,
right,
it's not no monolithic African. I mean,
absolutely
the diversity within the continent is powerful.
Yes.
And so I think, that's the whole thing about it. Like I said, I went to Egypt.
Yes.
Egypt's totally different than
Cameroon
or Nigeria or,
like
Congo.
My head is like you went to the Middle East, because it's like their culture mirrors the Middle East now more than it mirrors the rest of Africa, right?
Right. So and that's the thing, but during the World Cup.
Yeah.
When Morocco made it to like the semifinals, right?
Yes.
Morocco's the first African country, but you don't really think about it like that because but Morocco is officially in Africa.
It is, and it was one of those things where those of us that are soccer fans and we absolutely love soccer, we are from South Sahara Africa. I try not to use Sub-Sahara. South Sahara Africa. We were like, well, I know some of you try to say you're not Africans, but you still belong on this continent. Right. So we are going to support you. And even some of them didn't even know. Like I saw a Facebook thing where the guy was like, oh, look at this Senegalese guy that is supporting us. There was like one dark-skinned Senegalese guys among all these group of Moroccans and more lighter-skinned Moroccans. So to that Moroccan person talking, it was almost like, oh, surprise, the South is supporting us. But we're like, but we are on the same continent. Why shouldn't we support you? And it was funny to me that the way he translated that, even as a Moroccan, he didn't feel African. Like I was like, you're all literally on the same continent. How can you think that you belong to the Middle East when you're literally on the African continent?
And that raises a very good point, and an important point about who determines how you identify yourself. Who makes the determination of how you're to be labeled or how you want to be labeled, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like this whole thing, like, we're all part of the diaspora. So people say, well, diaspora. I mean, we African diaspora. What do you mean? I mean, the places that people from Africa have touched,
right?
Where they live,
yeah,
where they actually have spent time. And, you think about the African diaspora, then you think about, not just Africa or North America. You think about South America with Brazil.
Yeah.
You think about even Colombia.
Yes.
Ecuador.
Yep. Haiti.
And Venezuela.
Yep.
Then you think about, Mexico. And you think about Nicaragua. And, and so Belize and places like that, and Dominican and Haiti and Jamaica and Cuba. And so the point of it is that, we all have dark skin. And we have maybe some commonalities, but we also have a lot of differences based upon, where our ancestors touched.
Right.
And the thing about, some of the questions you asked me to think about and ponder. The thing about, I've been in higher education now. I got count now, so math ain't my so bear with me for a second.
I will bear with you.
I've been this is my 39th, going on my 39th year.
Wow.
I know.
A lot.
A long time. And that's why I was telling you before, I'm more towards the back end of my career than the front end.
Right.
But you think about I think about how powerful education is.
Yes.
I was the first one in my family, my mom and dad decided to go to college. Outside my cousin in Boston, and she's a medical doctor, and she's a dean of diversity at Harvard Medical School. Her and I, and she's older than me, and her and I were like the first two in an extended family. Right. Mother and father side of the family.
Wow.
And but the whole opportunity about education is that powerful. I mean, and it really is that transformative. And it's not just about what you may major in at a college. That's almost secondary.
Right.
What's important is all the other things outside of that you encounter and that you're exposed to that influence and shape you and really prepare you for the broader world. That's the transformative part of it.
That's true.
And so when you avail yourself of engaging with others from a different background than you, from a different culture, from a different part of the world, from a different journey, it just makes you stronger and more confident and sure of you in terms of your identity and how you see yourself.
Right.
And I have some friends who talk about this word that's overworked. It's called community, right? What's community? Community. It's kind of tired and trite, but now I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that community is really this concept where, we care about each other and we are connected to each other, but it's also where we learn from each other. And from that engagement and that interaction, where we learn from each other, we get a sense of our value and others' value to the world, and how we need to support each other and work with each other to create this space where we all can thrive and be okay in.
Yes.
And that really is a process that really you put yourself out there.
Right.
So you're not just reticent and you just, I'm just going to do my thing and I don't care about you. And I got my space, you got your space. Don't knock on my door, ask for no sugar, and I will not ask for no cup of sugar. Yeah. I mean, it's more to it than that. And the benefits that come from us doing that are enormous. Yeah. But where do you first engage in that? Not so much in your early years, like, elementary school, middle school, high school. It's when you go to college. Because even, in my journey, as we talked about earlier, my dad exposed us to the world by his service in the Army. But I'm rare.
Right.
I'm rare. Even the military doesn't do that anymore. What they'll do is you'll be attached to a base now, and you go off and do some extended tour or some tour for a certain amount of time, and you come back to your base afterwards where your family is.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, that's because it got too expensive to do what we did.
Right.
We all moved up and uprooted.
Everybody moved every year.
Right, every 2 or 3 years we in a new place. They don't do that no more.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm rare. But the thing about it is that type of engagement and that type of interaction makes you better. But you don't normally get that now because most places are just homogeneous. Everybody look like me. Everybody, because most people, if you look at research and data, tell you that most people, most kids who go to college are basically especially people of color, are in high schools and schools that are where they are the vast majority.
Right.
So basically they're educated in segregated settings for the most part. And if you think about that,
that's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
You look at these.
LA right now, and
You're right. You look at suburban areas.
Yeah.
Affluent suburban areas, predominantly white, right? With a few other individuals smattered in there, but or then you look at deep urban areas real of color, depending upon the neighborhood and the part of the community. Look at deep rural, for the most part, pretty much white, or, you know, you might see some native communities, especially in Oklahoma.
Right.
But the point of it is that college is that first place where people come together from different backgrounds.
Right.
And so, as I said earlier, you major in something, and that gives you the technical skill set to go out there and get a job in a profession. But that's not what really makes you prepared for the world.
Right.
It's that engagement, that challenge to your mindset, you know, to be challenging your own belief system that you've acquired in those 17, 18 years, whatever, before you got there. And now that you're meeting someone who has a different mindset than you, and a different way of seeing the world than you. Right. And so now you're measuring that against what you believe in, what you believed in. And then all the other things, you know, help shape that. And then that really rounds you off into the person you're going to become.
Right.
And that's the beauty about college. So, but the whole thing about this whole idea about DEI, you know, the history of higher education, you know, of course, as you know, you had the Harvards of the world that were formed in the 17th century and before America, while America was still a colony. And, you know, Brown and all them other places, and William and Mary and other schools like that. But then you had this whole idea about schools were basically for white men of means, or the sons of white men with means.
Right.
Then, you know, it wasn't until like the 19th century, early 19th century, that you had the first women's school, you know. Right. And then you had, Lucius Twilight was his brother that was the first Black person to graduate from college or attend college, and I think it was Middlebury College, kind of like the Middlebury up here in it's part of Middlebury up here in Monterey, but the Middlebury's in Vermont. He was the first. That was 1820. Yeah, that's 1823. Wow. So the point I'm making is that, you know, higher education really wasn't for anyone other than, you know, males of means, white males of means, until, like, you know, after the Civil War.
That's interesting.
It's the case. And so then now we're at this point in time now where we moved and evolved, where now segregation is kind of like over with, even though we're only a couple of generations removed. I worked at OU, Oklahoma University of Oklahoma, right, before I came here, and I worked at the Health Sciences Center. But I got my doctorate from the University of Oklahoma. I got my doctorate late in life, but I had started when I was early, and then a colleague of mine who was my mentor, he got a presidency. This was early in my career. Right. Got a presidency and asked me to join him as his chief of staff. So I left my doctoral program at Illinois State and moved to Boston. But anyway, it took me 20 years to get back into a doctoral program, but I finished.
That's a commitment, though, on your part. You committed.
Right. You know, it was a part of my, you know, the dream that I saw for myself. You know, but anyway, you know, OU wasn't but a couple of generations removed from segregation, and you know, they still had the vestiges of segregation in terms of the fraternity and sorority system. Right. Wow. You know, the white fraternities and the white sororities had their own houses. The Black fraternities and Black sororities had to kind of meet in residence halls or meet in the student union and all that, because they didn't have their own houses. Right. That's a vestige of segregation. Wow. And so we're not that far removed from that. But the beautiful thing about this whole thing about DEI is that this should be natural anyway. It shouldn't be a struggle. Or you should be giving someone a pat on the back. Oh, you started a DEI thing. You got hired to the press. Ooh, you get some brownie points. You get some, you know, you get some kudos. Yeah. No, that's what we should be doing anyway, because this is the core of what higher ed is supposed to be about. That they say they're about. They say they're about the free exchange of ideas. They're about people from different backgrounds coming together, sharing ideas and sharing ways of seeing the world, and sharing ways about how that difference makes them all stronger and better. If that's the case, then it should be natural.
That's true. I agree. It's very interesting that you touched on that, because one of the critiques was exactly that. The people are critiquing the fact that, why are we behaving like, oh, because you're in DEIB, all of a sudden you should get a badge of honor? Why should we respect you for doing what is right? Like, it's supposed to be the right thing to do, and you should not be getting a pat in the back for doing what is right. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
No, you're absolutely right, sister. I mean, yeah. Why? Wait. You doing the right thing, but you want to be recognized and get back. Okay. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's funny because, you know, I had an administrator say to me that this DEI work is like sprinkles on a cupcake. Now they thought they were being complimentary.
Oh, said, wow. Really? Yeah, that's not a compliment.
I said, that's not a compliment. I said, no, we are the batter of the cupcake. We are central to what you do.
Yeah.
Engaging people from different backgrounds, engaging people with some different cultures, engaging people who see the world differently, free exchange of ideas, even when you disagree, is the core and the crux of what we do in higher education.
Yes.
So to say that, okay, it's kind of like ancillary, no, it's central.
It is central.
It's central. And, it doesn't matter what you major in, we're preparing you for a broader world. So there's a book out, it was called Robot Proof. And by what's his name? Joseph Aoun. Joseph Aoun, who's the president at Northeastern. Right? I don't know if he still is, probably still is. President of Northeastern. And the purpose of the book is talk about how to basically function in a highly technical age in terms of higher education and colleges. And he talked about the things that students in the future need. They need to have data literacy. Yeah, I got that.
Right.
You need to understand how data is used and all that. You got to have technological literacy. Right. Yeah, got that too. And then he said this whole idea about cultural literacy. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And he called this thing called humanics. So it's like, humanities and culture, understanding how to engage people from different backgrounds.
Right.
And that's skills that you need in any type of environment.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter your major. You could be a science major. You got, you need to still understand how to deal with diverse populations.
Right.
You could be a technical major, be a computer science major.
Yes.
You still got to learn that. Or you could be a humanities major or education major.
Yeah.
Of course you need that. But in any particular major or skill set or field, you need to be able to engage people from a different background. We talk about diversity and, demographic diversity. But the other diversity, which is important, is cognitive diversity.
Right.
Being with people who think differently. Corporations will tell you that's important. That enhances creativity, right? So if I see something one way, but someone else sees something a different way, and we come together and figure it out, that expands the range of possibilities that you can envision and how you can solve a problem or solve a challenge. So there's different ways to think about that and look at it. But the idea is we should not seek common things, homogeneity.
Yes.
We should think about difference and how difference enhances the experiences that we have, the opportunities that we can envision, the wide range of things that can be possible that you wouldn't be able to envision unless somebody else was helping you envision it. So
yeah, I completely agree with that because I from just studying culture and my final conclusion when I took culture and placed it in light of DEIB, it was more about that diversity in thinking, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective. We cannot keep doing society in that uniform, homogeneous way that you're saying, because it just doesn't work. Our society is diversifying very quickly. The US is at least 40% diversified compared to other countries. So how do we live in a country that is so multicultural, so diverse, and then keep insisting on doing things one way just because it's the way we've always done things? It won't work. We need that diversity of thinking. We need that diversity more in culture, in people, than in skin color. So it's not just about putting a Black person in a place. It's about what does that Black person really bring? What kind of diversity do they bring to the team that they're putting them in? One of the challenges that I faced in higher ed was sitting in situations where I am bringing a diverse thought, but feeling like I was getting pushed back because it wasn't the trendy thought. Right. So I almost feel like in higher ed, we are not doing enough to leverage the diversity that students bring into the schools. We bring in Chinese students, we bring students from Africa, we bring students from South America. But are we really leveraging and really learning culturally or just different ways from these students to enhance our education? Or are we just moving what we have customized in that works maybe for the white male 18th century education in the classrooms today? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts on that. I think, the thing about it is that we look at education as we always have looked at education, right? So you come to a college or university and you major in something and you take classes that help, facilitate the major. You take some gen ed classes, general education classes that you need, common classes, English and math, some basic science stuff, some humanities, some history, social sciences and things like that. But you're mainly taking, half your classes, you're taking your classes in your major.
Right.
And we focus on that. But it's like I said earlier, it's like we don't focus on how we equip students to exist in a multicultural,
right,
highly diverse world. And so we get so fixated on that because we can monetize that.
That's true.
I can monetize how many classes you take.
Yes.
You taking 5 classes, 3 credit hours a class, that's 15 hours. I charge you X amount of money per credit hour. I can monetize that, right? And because we're a business.
Yeah.
I remember, this is funny, Ruth. I was at St. Louis Community College, and it was the Florissant Valley campus, which was a North County campus in St. Louis. And it had gone through it had gone through a serious demographic change. It went from a predominantly white institution, about 12,000 students, to a predominantly Black community, with half that student population. But they didn't lose any at the same size of faculty and staff as they had when they had at 12,000 students, right? So when I got hired, the president who hired me, who became a dear friend of mine, said, I want you to, we're doing a strategic planning process. I want you to handle this part on recruitment and retention. Okay, gotcha. So we're looking at the numbers. I said to everybody, I said, excuse me, let me ask y'all a question. Because everybody was complaining about this and that. These were faculty and staff. I said, let me ask you a question. Name me a business that loses 50% of its customer base, doesn't lose any of its employee base.
Yes, nobody.
I said, take your time. I'll wait. They couldn't name one.
There isn't. Doesn't exist.
So we're a business. We're a business, right? So higher education is this business.
Yeah.
It needs to make money to basically exist.
That's true.
And people don't work for nothing. People work for money. Okay. Now faculty may be grossly underpaid, staff may be grossly underpaid. Yeah. But it's still a business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the point is that, we monetize something, but we also forget that we fail to enhance the experience in the ways that truly does resonate, because most people will change careers a couple times in their career.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we give you is like what Aum said, that ability to engage with people, to be culturally flexible, to have the cultural capacity to exist in any particular environment and thrive.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of skill set that gets understated, but needs to be emphasized heavily, because that's what's important. And I would suggest in this world of conflict that a lot of conflict comes from ignorance. A lot of conflict comes from hatred, which is attached to ignorance. A lot of conflict comes from these biases, which come from ignorance, which comes from lack of knowledge. And that's why education is so powerfully important. And that's why some people are trying to control access to it. Because when you educate people, they tend to not necessarily believe that the status quo is the only way.
That's true.
And that's not good for those who are benefiting from the status quo. Right. It's like Carter G. Woodson back in 1930, I think in 1933, wrote the book Miseducation of the Negro.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a classic. As a matter of fact, I use it in my dissertation work. But anyway, the quote. Now this is gender specific because that's back in the 1930s, so it wasn't gender neutral back then. Right. You control a man's thinking, control a man's action.
Wow.
So if you control a person's thinking, you control a person's actions.
That's true.
So how do you control a person's thinking? You control a person's thinking by controlling the access to education, or even controlling how you are educated, or maybe miseducated.
Right. Wow.
So the whole idea is then how do we use this whole idea about equity and inclusion and diversity? What does it actually mean? I'm not into labels so much. I'm more interested in, so you can come up with different names, and people do come up with different names.
They do. But
it's really about how do we respect and value each other?
Yes.
And how do we use that exposure and access to change the natures of people's lives, to help them see the world differently, to help them see the world in a more humane and broader and accepting way. How do we do that? Yeah. And so to me, that's what this work's about. That's how I see it.
That's how I see it too. Because the bottom line is that respect. We are never, ever going to agree on everything in this life.
True.
And the only way for us to keep working together is to understand each other and then respect each other and find a common ground. So I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
Like the labels are just a bit too much. But let's come back to that focal point that you just mentioned.
Yeah, so I think that back to the idea about why we do what we do, and I think the nature about whether or not college and universities are serious about it. A lot of them are not. There was an article recently. I'll have to send it to you. A friend of mine sent it to me about these 3 individuals who do diversity DEI work, diversity, equity, inclusion work at Princeton. They resigned, and they resigned because they didn't see the sincerity or commitment of the administration at Princeton.
Yes.
And you see other people doing the same thing, because and I've had these issues with some of the places where I've worked.
Right.
The lack of sincerity, the lack of commitment, lack of true focus on why this is important.
Yeah.
And I make my pitch every time I get a chance in different places and rooms and committees and meetings I'm in. But I shouldn't have to do that.
It's true.
So I think,
I agree.
I think that at some point in time, the question then becomes, what's the step beyond?
Right.
So you created infrastructure, and where overall college universities across this country spend billions of dollars on people like me and training and consulting and things like that. But what's the next step?
Right.
Well, the next step really is to take it beyond the office, beyond the roles, beyond the programs and whatever, and understand that everything we do should be tied into the fact about equity, opportunity, engagement, fairness, and how we use all that to help shape people's lives and give them the opportunity to understand their place and their purpose in the world.
Right. Wow.
So, and that's not, you'll find people, woke and, politically correct and all that. This is about fundamentally respecting and valuing each other, even when we disagree.
Yes, I agree. Wow.
We all have value and purpose in this world.
Yes.
And that's the truth. Nobody's better or worse than someone else. We all have value and purpose.
Yes.
And, it's the golden rule. You do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Yeah.
I do to my neighbor what my neighbor does to me.
Right.
I do for my neighbor what my neighbor does for me.
Right.
It's like, and every religion has that basic tenet.
That's true.
So that means that you value others. They're different than you, but you value them.
Right.
And so back to this idea where I tell you about the word community. And when we talk about at my college here at university, I basically used that word when I first got here. So when I first got here, my president at the time, we were at an academic senate meeting. He came over to me. I was sitting in the room. It was before the pandemic. I'm gonna introduce you. So you can get up and say a few words. I said, cool, no problem. So he introduced me. It came time for his comments. And he introduced me, and I got up and said a few words. And I said, I believe in the 4 C's. I said, I believe in civility. How we treat each other.
Right.
And civility. I agree with you, but I respect you, and I value you.
Right.
And I respect the same. I believe in collegiality. We work in. We all part of the academy.
Right.
We're all in this together. Ain't nobody different, or nobody's role is more important than the other. We all are important. Whether you're a groundskeeper, or a facilities person, or you're a faculty member, or you're the president, we all important in what we do.
Right.
And I believe in collaboration. We work together and we work across boundaries. Higher education is famous for silos, right? They say silo. You do your thing, I do my thing. You ain't.
Yeah, that's not my department. That's not my department.
Exactly. We good for that.
Yes,
anything, we good for that. We can do that. We can do that with the best of them. So I believe in collaboration.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is I believe in community. I am my sister's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. And that we support each other and we work with and we care for each other. We make sure that each other's all right. We make sure these students are okay. And that we also model what we want students to do.
Right.
So we just don't talk the talk, we walk the walk.
Walk.
And so to me, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that. When I was a lone voice in the wilderness, I was like that. Like John the Baptist, I'm like,
yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to equate myself to a prophet, by the way. So just let that be known right now. But
that's not where you're going with that.
No, girl, I ain't going that way. No. So let me be clear.
Right.
but no, I was like, yeah, I mean, I've always believed that the sense that, we all are in this together. We all are part of community. My first 2 jobs in higher ed, I was the only Black male employee at my 2 institutions. I mean, faculty or staff. I was the only Black male.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, what was that experience like?
You talking about fishbowl. It's like a small little bowl on a desk. I'm looking at you, but it made me be resourceful. One, it made me be fearless. I've always known many people can accuse me of many things, but I've never been shy about saying what needs to be said, and that's always been a part of me. To my mom and dad's chagrin. Oh boy, here you go. You're a radical, my dad. I was reading. I left these books in Florida, and my dad and mom said they threw them out. I was like, why you threw the books out? They talking about, oh man, them books were subversive. I'm like, come on, mom and dad. But anyway, it was Mao's red book, Gaddafi's green book,
what?
Communist Manifesto, and all these other, because I mean,
you're growing your mind, you're learning and defining yourself.
Oh yeah. And I had to laugh at them because I love my mom and dad, and so I was like, okay, I got y'all.
Yeah.
but that was part of me. Part of my particular learning and wanting to learn. But it's like we just need to understand that we have to challenge ourselves and help individuals understand that you can be okay with the world, but you have an obligation to help change the world, make it better for everybody. Right. And that college is where we equip you with the capacity to do that. Right. And this whole idea behind DEI really is about understanding that you learn from each other. Yeah. And there's invaluable things that you can learn from someone from a different background, a different way of seeing the world than you.
That's very true.
And when you hang with people in college who look like you and have the same thoughts that you have, you're depriving yourself of the full benefits of the experience.
Right. Wow.
So anyway,
I am sold. If I wasn't a college graduate, I probably will go back to college based on everything you've said.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to be a college student. To be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, there's some serious challenges in this world, but I think some serious opportunities in this world. Right. And I think when we go there with the mindset that I'm a major in a particular field and all that, but I'm going to be much more than that.
Right.
I see myself much more than that.
Right.
I think you basically make yourself better for the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing. There is no other way for me to end this but to say, yes, you've said it, you nailed it. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Amazing.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening to my conversations with Brian. It is such a joy to hear how education in higher ed has impacted his life and the encouragement to apply DEIB not just as a tool for business growth, but as the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do because DEIB teaches us respect. It teaches us how to value one another, how to listen to other perspectives and other opinions. And it opens the door to many conversations that we might not have otherwise in our day-to-day lives. So take advantage of this recording and the last recording to grow your knowledge of DEIB and continue to learn and explore this new structure that is designed to basically help us be better human beings, better keepers of one another. You are welcome to send me your thoughts. You're welcome to share with me topics you want to hear about or you would like for myself and a guest to discuss or just myself to reflect on. And if you would like to come to the show and discuss a topic that is near and dear to your heart and that is culturally relevant, do email me. Again, my name is Dr. Ruth, the host of Jambo, Dr. Akumbu. Until next time, Asante Asana.